It was March 18th, 2000, when a jogger in rural Washington spotted a wrecked Jeep deep in the forest and miles off the main road. The doors were open. A blanket was draped in the back seat. Cat's paw prints were pressed into the dirt. The engine was cold, but something about the scene felt recent. The Jeep belonged to 23-year-old Leah Roberts, a college student from North Carolina who'd left home 10 days earlier. Her trip was meant to be spontaneous, a cross-country journey, a spiritual escape. Inspired by the writings of Jack Kerouac, she packed her belongings, left behind a note, and vanished. But the crash didn't make sense. The damage didn't match the terrain. Her clothes were inside, but her keys were gone. And Leah, she was never seen again. This is the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin. Tonight, we follow a path into the Cascade Mountains and into the life of a young woman searching for meaning, who may have found something entirely different. Leah Roberts was born in 1976 and raised in Durham, North Carolina, the youngest of three siblings. She was bright, creative, she loved animals, philosophy, and alternative music. But her life, like so many, was shaped by tragedy. At 17, Leah lost her father to a long illness, and then at 20, her mother died suddenly of heart failure. Within 3 years, both of her parents were gone. Those who knew her said she changed, grew more introspective. She began studying cultural anthropology at NC State and developed a passion for writing, art, and Eastern philosophy. But her journey wasn't linear. In 1999, Leah was in a near-fatal car crash. She suffered internal injuries and a punctured lung. The accident left her with a metal rod in her leg and a newfound outlook on life. In early 2000, Leah discovered the writings of Jack Kerouac, especially his novel The Dharma Bums, which chronicled spiritual searching and travel throughout the American West. That spring, she withdrew from college without telling many people. She emptied her bank account, packed up her cat, her belongings, and a note. I'm not suicidal. I'm the opposite. Then she got in her white Jeep Cherokee and drove west, alone. In the days that followed, Leah was spotted in Memphis, Tennessee, then Albuquerque, New Mexico, then Oregon. She used her debit card at gas stations and diners, made casual conversation. There were no signs of any distress. In Brooks, Oregon, she stopped at a coffee shop and asked a waitress about Mount Baker, a remote mountain in Washington. She said she was planning to visit. On March 13th, Leah checked into a motel in Bellingham, Washington. She bought a movie ticket for American Beauty, and then she vanished. There were no witnesses. There was no security footage. There were no calls to family or friends. Leah just went silent. What drove Leah to the Pacific Northwest? What did she find when she got there? And who, if anyone, met her along the way? Coming up, a wrecked car in the forest, and a mystery that begins after she was gone. On March 18, 2000, 5 days after Leah was last seen. A jogger running near a remote logging road in Whatcom County, Washington, a heavily forested area near Mount Baker, noticed something strange tucked between the trees. It was a white Jeep Cherokee crashed into an embankment off Canyon Creek Road. Its windows were broken, the front was damaged, but inside, things didn't quite add up. The car had clearly been in an accident, but the details all felt wrong. The driver's seatbelt wasn't engaged, the airbags hadn't deployed, there was no blood, no signs of injury. The odometer reading suggested the car had been driven hundreds of miles, more than Leah's trip would account for. It looked staged. And if it was, the question was, why? Inside the Jeep, police found Leah's clothes and other belongings, even her stuffed animal, which she was known to keep with her. A blanket was laid out in the back seat. There were cat paw prints in the dust, but her cat B was nowhere to be found. More unsettling, Leah's cash, checkbook, and jewelry were left in plain sight. Nothing appeared stolen. There were no fingerprints and no signs of a struggle. Police found a ticket stub from a movie theater in Bellingham dated March 13, the last known day she was seen alive. That aligned with her check-in at a nearby motel. Also found a handwritten note referencing Jack Kerouac and the Dharma Bones. I'm not suicidal. I'm the opposite. But Leah wasn't there. One of the most debated elements of this case is what happened after March 13th. The Jeep's position suggested it had been intentionally accelerated over a berm. Damage to the undercarriage didn't align with just a simple skid or slide. Investigators believe the car was launched, not rolled accidentally. A mechanic later examined the vehicle and confirmed the accelerator appeared to have been pinned down using an object, like a brick or a rock, supporting the idea of a staged crash. Which means someone else may have been trying to make it look like Leah crashed and walked away. A few days after the car was found, a young man called the local police tip line, claiming he'd seen Leah at a gas station and that she had been traveling with two men. But when police traced the call, the man gave a fake name and disappeared. He's never been identified. There were no confirmed sightings of Leah after March 13. No evidence she was ever in that forest, no signs of a struggle, and no body. She seemed to vanish in the space between inspiration and intention. Did Leah Roberts disappear by choice? Was she abducted? Or was she following a philosophy that led her into the wilderness with someone watching from behind? Coming up, the investigation, the theories, and the haunting sense that someone may still know the truth and never came forward. After Leah's Jeep was discovered, law enforcement launched a full-scale search of the surrounding forest, hoping she'd wandered away from the scene, injured or disoriented. Search dogs, helicopters, thermal imaging, all deployed across the rough terrain of Whatcom County's Cascade foothills. They found nothing. No footprints, no discarded clothing, no campfires, no evidence of Leah or her cat ever leaving the vehicle site. It was as if the forest just absorbed her. Then came the anonymous caller. A man contacted police claiming he had seen Leah at a gas station in Everett, Washington, around March 14th. He said she was with two unknown men and looked nervous. But when police tried to trace the call, the number was fake. So was the name. Why would someone insert themselves into the investigation only to vanish? Leah had left her North Carolina home quietly, but when investigators interviewed her roommate, things got murky. He claimed to be worried when she left, but never reported her missing. Some of Leah's friends believed he had an unrequited romantic interest in her. He declined a polygraph, then lawyered up quickly. To be clear, he's never been named a suspect, but his behavior did raise questions. Forensic teams combed through the Jeep, but their findings were limited. DNA was inconclusive, no fingerprints of interest were recovered. The crash itself yielded no clues as to whether Leah was even in the car when it happened. To date, the only strong lead is circumstantial. Someone likely staged that crash. Years later, private investigators hired by Leah's family returned to the scene. They discovered fabric fibers in the trees, suggesting the car had been airborne. And perhaps most disturbing, they noted signs that the passenger seat had been adjusted recently, long after the crash occurred. Did someone return to the scene? New forensic tools were suggested, but by then, too much time had passed. The forest had reclaimed the evidence. Like many high-profile missing persons cases, Leah's story drew unconfirmed sightings. A woman matching her description spotted in a Bellingham diner, unverified. Another reportedly living in Canada, false. A few tips suggested she'd joined a commune or spiritual group inspired by Kerouac, but none were substantiated. It became hard to separate possibility from projection. There was no arrest, no body, no conclusive evidence of foul play or a voluntary disappearance, just a car in the forest with a family still waiting for answers. Coming up, the enduring mystery of Leah's disappearance, the symbolic meanings she left behind, and what her story says about freedom, faith, and the lines between escape and erasure. Leah Roberts set out west not to disappear, but to become. In her own words, she wasn't running away. She was seeking something. I'm not suicidal. I'm the opposite. Her road trip wasn't a breakdown. It was a rebirth, a declaration of freedom, a life lived without fear and maybe without a plan. The books she packed, the journals she left behind, all point to a young woman in search of something larger than herself. Nature, transcendence, or a place to begin again. She had survived grief. She had survived a near-death crash. Maybe she thought the worst was behind her. Leah's siblings, especially her older sister Kara, have kept her story alive. They've worked with private investigators, media outlets, and law enforcement, returning again and again to the mountains where her Jeep was found. But the silence never broke. There are no confirmed sightings. There have been no phone calls. There was no final message. Just an unfinished story in a car in the woods. Some believe Leah chose to vanish, to leave behind everything, even her name. But why stage a crash? Why abandon money, journals, her beloved cat? And why has no one, not a single person, come forward with a credible sighting in nearly 25 years? Disappearance is one thing, erasure is another. In the Dharma Bums, Jack Kerouac wrote, "The closer you get to real matter, rock, air, fire, and wood, boy, the more spiritual the world is." Leah was chasing that feeling. Not to die, but to wake up, to shed the weight of grief, to find peace under wide skies. Instead, she became the subject of her own mystery. A name lost in the trees, a photo on a missing poster, a trail that never fully opened. Leah's case remains unsolved. No new leads, no suspects, and no final chapter. Maybe she found what she was looking for. Maybe someone took that from her. Or maybe the forest holds more than trees. Perhaps it holds answers. This has been the Midnight Mystery Archive. I'm Kevin. Tonight's mystery ends where her trail did, in the quiet space between freedom and fear, and the cold, echoing silence of the Washington wild. Until next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Midnight Mystery Archive. Every week, 2 new episodes with 2 new mysteries. Follow along. We can be found on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Until next time.